Good morning. I live in Baton Rouge, far from most of you, but on this morning, my joy is close by. Let's open our hearts to this day and feel the connections now as we gather and worship east and west, north and south on this amazing day in our religious movement because someone was called to our ministry and a particular congregation is resounding with a yes indeed. Did someone amongst us say, this is exactly what we need in this most mysterious year of disorientation and worry and discernment, significant challenge and stress? In this year of hurt and loss of all kinds, isn't this what we need? Someone asked, and a multitude responded, exactly this, precisely this. So in a noteworthy and praiseworthy Advent mood of expectations, both humble and splendiferous, from all corners we gather in worship this morning. Though not all things are happy with the people on the planet, not all things are sour either. This day there is hope in the valley and there's hopefulness in the bay. Did someone say they'd be there for you? Did someone say they dedicate their life in service? Was someone encouraged by the prospect of ministry? Did someone find a sense of clarity, if I may say so, in the southern regions of a Louisiana Unitarian Universalist congregation? And did someone find somehow a way to this day? Indeed, yes. How can we not be pleased? It is a time to celebrate, of course, and it is an unrepeatable event in time with a particular people and a particular person who collectively know that much more must be built on the traditions of unfettered love and justice and service in the key of joy. So bless that spirit. Did someone say, let us be eager to defend our time-honored tradition in worship, no matter what the circumstances? Did someone say, let us not be timid in our pride? Yes, indeed. And so we worship on the occasion of the ordination of one Catherine Boyle by the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Berkeley, whereupon she receives a new name today, the Reverend Catherine Boyle. We full well know what we should do. We must celebrate this day, whether we be nearby or far away. And in this participation, we bless this morning. We bless the congregation. We bless the ordinand and all who serve one another. Yes, indeed. And in that spirit, we gather in worship.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Simpson, and I serve on the Board of Trustees here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. We here at UUCB are proud of our long tradition as a teaching congregation. While Catherine came to us as the Director of Family Ministries rather than as an intern, we are just as proud to have been part of her journey towards professional ministry. We are delighted that you have joined us this morning to celebrate the ministry of Catherine Boyle. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Everly Delfino Salas Posh, and I'm going to light the chalice with a reading by Shel Silverstein. If you are a dreamer, come in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer, if you're a pretender, come sit by my fire. For we have some flax golden tales to spin. Come in, come in.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of here and night, for the heart and voice delight, for the mystic harmony, linking source to sound and sight. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and love. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Good morning. I'm Jack Duggan. I've been a member of the Board of Trustees of UUCB for the last 6 years. When I asked my wife, Suzette, when did Catherine come to us, she said August 2019. No, that's not right. I think it was 2018. I called Kat to clarify, and she thought it was 2018. And then we thought about it together. No, Suzette was right. It was 2019. It's been a long year. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I welcome all of Catherine's friends in joining us, the congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley, in celebrating the soon-to-be Reverend Catherine Boyle, who has been with us this whole year, and celebrate her leadership and hard work on our behalf and confirm her role as our minister and director of family ministry. Thank you.
Kat, I bring you greetings as the president of the Pacific Central District chapter of the Liberal Religious Educators Association. I also speak to you as your mentor and as someone who has served as both a minister of religious education and a parish minister. And I'd like to remind you of something you already know. The Ministry of Religious Education, parish ministry, all Unitarian Universalist ministries are essentially the same. The old Universalists taught that all human beings are worthy of God's love, and while we may use different terminology today, we're more likely to speak of the inherent worth and dignity of all human beings. Nevertheless, as Unitarian Universalist ministers, we are called to meet people where they are, to see that in them which is worthy of our love, and to engage in ministry side by side with them. So it is that doing ministry by teaching a class full of kindergartners is essentially the same as doing ministry by preaching to a room full of adults. Unitarian Universalist ministers serve in a wide variety of settings. Some of us preach weekly sermons. Some of us do most of our ministry with children and teens. Some of us serve in homeless shelters or in social justice organizations or in private practice. All these ministries are equally valuable. And I can tell you from personal experience that serving as the minister of religious education in a Silicon Valley church is equally rewarding to serving as the parish minister in an inner city church or as the part-time pulpit supply for a tiny working class church. But to paraphrase Unitarian Universalist minister Robert Fulghum, everything I needed to know about ministry I learned by teaching a Sunday school kindergarten class. Make sure everyone is safe. Make sure everyone is seen and heard. Treat everyone there with dignity and respect. It's good to sing together. Above all, the kindergarten classroom taught me that Unitarian Universalism really does make a difference in people's lives. You have a long career stretching before you. Who knows where you'll be half a century from now? I can see you working in a social justice agency. I can see you filling one of those prominent pulpits in our denomination. But wherever you go, never forget what every minister of religious education knows. Keep people safe. Let people be seen and heard. Treat everyone, no matter what their age, as worthy of love. Don't forget to sing together.
Hello, I'm Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am honored to be a part of this joyful and sacred event. The very soon-to-be Reverend Catherine Boyle has asked me to say a few words about the meaning of ordination. Basically, why are we here? Well, I'd like to take advantage of the fact that we are doing this online and provide an illustration. This is a Russian icon known as the Trinity, painted by Andrei Rublev in the early 15th century. And you might be wondering why in the world a Unitarian Universalist would use a painting of the Trinity as a metaphor for the sacred rite of ordination. Well, bear with me, because the nature of icons is that they can be several things at once. Today, I'd like to imagine that this is a visual metaphor for the Unitarian Universalist sacrament of ordination. Let's imagine that the figure in the middle of the painting, the one in a brown tunic with a blue shawl, is the ordaining congregation. That's you, UU Church of Berkeley. The figure on the left in a shimmery mother of pearl kind of robe is the ordinand, the soon-to-be Reverend Catherine. I want to draw your attention to the way they're looking at each other. Notice how the figure in the middle, the congregation, is acknowledging the figure on the left, the person being ordained as a UU minister. That gaze says several things in this case. It says, you are a part of us, and yet you are unique. It says, we attest and affirm that you have the credentials and the qualities of a minister. You've achieved the degree of Master of Divinity. You've gone through the crucibles of clinical pastoral education and an internship. You've been tested and credentialed by the Ministerial Fellowship Committee. But beyond all this, the gaze of that figure in the middle says, we know you, and we honor your character and your commitment to this congregation and to this faith. We see you as a minister. And notice how the ordinand looks back at the congregation. Again, we're imagining this is Catherine looking back at UUCB, acknowledging the covenant of shared ministry and shared accountability that exist between them. But if you look carefully, you can see she's also looking somewhere else. She's looking at that figure over on the right, the one wearing blue and green. Let's call that figure the Spirit, or maybe the call. At one and the same time, the ordained minister returns the gaze of the ordaining congregation. Catherine is in a covenantal relationship with this particular congregation, and her eyes extend beyond that relationship to something even greater, to what Reverend John Haynes Holmes called a conscious communion with the eternal. The congregation sees that the minister is looking beyond them into the eternal, into the larger mystery. And that's one of the reasons they acknowledge her as a minister in the first place. And finally, that elusive figure on the right, that one we're calling the Spirit, or the call, or devotion to a higher truth, that figure looks back on the other two in the act of ordination, infusing the moment with an element of the holy. But that figure also seems to be looking somewhere else, somewhere sort of out of the frame of the picture. They are looking at us, at all of us who are gathered here today in witness of this sacred event. All of us who together represent the larger faith and the larger community of allies and accomplices. And as we too are seen, the sacred circle moves out and out like the waves of the Big Bang, creating in its wake endless ripples of faith and of love.
Our reading is by Jacqueline Beauregard from Source of Our Faith. Before I came, I was in the birdsong, announcing dawn in globes of dew. I could hear gulls spread over the sea, colored by dawn light, and feel swelling water bounce off the ocean floor. There, in the shafts of light, the bones of my ancestors began to drum and echo, and to that beat, stone pounded stone upon the shore. Out of the rock came life. Animals ground seeds. I inhaled life in the first breath that blew through a reed. My flesh moved, with others drawing rhythm from a skin drum, knowing hunger in the reach of an empty bowl. I wore my beads and danced on earth's soft face, gave life, helped children to their feet, learned from smooth stones to question my uneven edges. For a time, it is all mine. Until my bones from instruments, from coming dancers whose song, whose indecipherable words my spirit will come to understand. And so ends the reading.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn
Hello, I am the Reverend Walter Clark, and it is my honor on this blessed occasion to offer a prayer. Please take a moment and join me in the spirit of meditation and of prayer. God of many names, Spirit of life and compassion, that which holds all. We gather today in this virtual space, our bodies constrained by the limits of physical distance, but our hearts united together to celebrate the ministry of Catherine Boyle. We are so grateful to her and her journey on this path, for we all know at this critical time the world is in need of more people that are willing to serve in the name of love. May all who witness this celebration today be inspired by Kat's ministry. May they too go forth into the world on the side of love. We pray for the strength of Kat as she continues her ministry. While there are always a myriad of joys to be experienced in ministry, there is also heartache. In those times, we pray that, Kat, you remember that strength need not come solely from within. That there are companions on your journey who will lift you up in times of need. We pray that you are strong enough to lean onto your colleagues in those times when your heart aches. Just as you encourage your colleagues to lean on you when their hearts are broken. And lastly, Kat, we rejoice in the talents that you hold and that you are sharing with this world that is in so dire need of them. Your energy, your spirit, your compassion are gifts. And these gifts are needed now more than ever. And that our denomination, Unitarian Universalism, is so proud to receive these gifts from you. Kat, may you hold these gifts high. May you let them shine for all the world to receive, for the world is indeed made better by your gifts. We pray for your continued ministry, Kat. May it be fruitful. May your heart stay strong on this journey, and may your voice ring clear for all the world to hear. Blessed be, and amen.
Good afternoon. I am the Reverend Jean Pupke, and I serve the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond, Virginia, where we were pleased to have Catherine Boyle as our intern. It's always a pleasure to take part in an ordination, but it's a point of pride to do so for your former interns. And we want to thank the community of the Berkeley Church for this opportunity to take part in this service. This is the second time I've been fortunate enough to be in a Berkeley Church ordination, first in person, now virtually. Blessings upon the community there. We will remember this year for some time to come. 2020, as the light falls away at the end of this year, we recognize that we are faced with this immense pandemic caused simply by a virus that existed peacefully before in its host and now is desperately seeking new hosts. We can't even quite come together in this country to agree that public health is a high enough priority that we should care about how our actions affect other people. And that's a logical outcome of decades and generations worth of preoccupation with domination, with extraction from the earth, with the amassing of wealth and power and privilege, which inevitably always require damage done elsewhere to other people, to other things. And as a result, we don't know how to move humbly in this world. As a result, we experience deep alienation and find that people don't know how to make friends, feel desperate and lonely, and that there are addictions and suicides, which are simply the outpouring of desperation in our society. And though we are most privileged people in this country, any one of us in the top 10% of any other country's income, we find too that we have a mystery before us as religious people. What shall we, what can we, who are we to suggest any way of being in this world? Now imagine yourself a new minister, a whole group of new ministers. I think this is my 6th ordination virtually online. Now you have to go to all of them. And I recognize how challenging it must feel for these new persons coming forward to take a leadership role, how to lead without the artifacts of domination, how to come forward humbly, aware of the need for virtual and collaborative endeavors to be guided by technology and not the face-to-face right now. How infinitely more complex it is to be a minister these days. And yet here they come. Isn't it amazing? Beautiful, wonderful that they come forward anyway to say, I am willing to become the parson in this situation, a word that derives from the English person, to allow ourselves to step into the middle of that community and say that the community matters. I think it's great. And here is why I think that is the right instinct and a true teaching. All this alienation that we are experiencing and seeing, it is quite real. Books are being written on how alienated and alone people feel. We see these effects. We see things like addiction. Why is it that opioids were so prominent in rural areas? It was a beautiful combination that led to an awful outcome. Things like deep economic adversity, a sense of lack of purposeness, a loss of the ability to know how to build relationships and make friends, and then how to live in those friendships with an exchange of heart and being there for one another. No, instead, our society has taught us to dominate and climb over and try harder, to amass more, to do more, to be more, such that the Kardashians, whatever it is that they actually do, become the obsession of large portions of this country, while philosophers go begging. This generation of ministers rising up is going to have to make a suggestion that is humble and seemingly preposterous to many. They're going to have to suggest that the fundamental building block of society isn't wealth, but is relationship. That it's the essential creative exchange of the moment of relationship between open-hearted people that creates new possibilities, which will allow us to solve the difficulties we're faced with and overcome the challenges that are a true part of the society we live in right now. We have run this train of greed, individualism, and personal amassing of power to its ultimate end. We've become addicted as a country to being dominated over the land, over the people, to establishing devices like slavery and the profit motive as ultimate truths, when in fact, human beings can't even live that way. We've disregarded the human scale of interchange, and everything has to be worldwide and global now. And yet, that denies who we are and what we need to survive and thrive. It also takes us far beyond a relationship to nature, and we forget how to be in the beauty. So when we look out from that beautiful terrace that you guys have over the waters, and we think about what will heal us as human beings, when in fact we as ministers, as religious people, as Unitarian Universalists, ask ourselves, is there a healing possible? We have to have the humility to admit we've got to take apart a lot of nonsense. And we've got to reestablish relationship as the essential building block of healing and wholeness in this world. Now that requires a lot of personal spiritual growth, and our ministers must be, first of all, committed to examining their own lives, motives, hopes, beliefs. We've all got to be real and understand that every social community is full of compromise. Let me tell you that I lived in a convent for many years, and while it might seem a purity place, a beautiful place, there's always politics. You've got to figure out and develop strategies, and part of my whole experience there was learning how to not have to win at everything, how to not have to be right about everything, but to have the humility to know I'm neither right nor correct even in the things I aspire to, that I have to examine my own motives, and that we humbly come together as people only when we can accept difference and let it be among us. My friends, as we ordain Cat Boyle, as we step forward to welcome her into the leadership role of an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister, let's understand that this next generation of ministers is probably going to come to us and tell us a preposterous tale. That the humble attention to relationship and relationship building, that the human interpersonal accountability is the only way we can stir the kind of creativity necessary for us to solve the world's problems of inequality, a lack of freedom, and a healing wholeness that sees that each person can receive what they need and not what the Kardashians want. That's an outrageous but simple truth. And will they have the strength to bring that message to us? Only if we are willing to trust. Not to come from our arrogance and say, well, we know how this works. Not to better organize ourselves so that we can be more instrumental in the public square. But rather, as we sit on our cushion, as we do our yoga, as we kneel, we must understand that we must bring a humility and a foundational commitment that is necessary to build relationships so that beloved community has a chance to exist anywhere among us. And this is not what we were taught to long for. It is the ultimate countercultural move. So you in Berkeley, you can do this, right? And for Kat and the generation of ministers who join her, let us be open-hearted and welcoming to a message of greater simplicity, to a hope in the warmness and way we greet and see one another, to a deeper capacity to listen. And oh, by the way, aren't those the strengths that Kat Boyle carries into the ministry? Pretty cool thing. I wish blessings upon you, Catherine. May this ministry, which will never, ever be easy, be authentically yours. May the people in the congregations and places you serve always, first rule of ministry, be people you love and care about. May you be deeply rewarded with a sense of purpose. When it pops up, grab it, because it doesn't pop up every day. And for all of us who are served by the great work of many, many of our religious leaders, let us be grateful and open to what they bring to us, that the world may heal, that the people may be joyful, and that hope might return to the society we live in, the country we are part of, and to the globe on which we turn in this darkest time of year. May it bring hope. May it bring illumination. And may it bring beloved community.
As is tradition in ordination services, we have a time to invite your generosity towards an important cause designated by the ordinand. Kat has chosen to invite our generosity today to go towards the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism Organizing Collective, often known as BLUU or BLUE. BLUE is a group with a deep history, and the current collective came together in 2015 to expand the power and capacity of Black UUs within our faith, to provide support, information, and resources for Black Unitarian Universalists, and to encourage justice-making and liberation throughout our faith. They do this by harnessing love's power to combat oppression and foster healing as a spiritual and political imperative, knowing the power of love to be life-changing, inclusive, relational, uncomfortable, and unconditional, and without end. With the increasing need for racial justice throughout our nation and the concerted work that UUCB is doing to combat injustices, especially racial injustices in our community, the need for support of this work is as great now as ever. For our offertory today, I hope that you will be as generous as possible in your gift. Thank you, truly thank you for your generosity today, which supports the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism.
O igni spiritus lautibus sit.
et gustum anime tribuit.
Quae in aureis operibus
Sudat.
Good morning. I am Reverend Elizabeth Marsh Ide, and I serve the congregation of the First Church in Salem in Massachusetts.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dave Clements, and I serve the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bloomington, Indiana.
Ours is a covenantal faith. Ours is a democratic faith. We Unitarian Universalist ministers are not elected by a divine force, but are chosen to lead by our congregations. We hereby invite all of the congregation to join us from home in offering this sacred act of ordination. Kat notes that she is happy to include cats and any other furry family members in this ritual.
Congregants, please join us together in repeating and reaffirming the covenant of your church. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
Members, friends, and congregants of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley, in ordaining Catherine, do you promise to uphold and affirm your covenant with Catherine in this new era of your shared ministry? If so, from wherever you are right now, please join me in saying, we do. We do.
Catherine, do you promise to uphold and affirm your covenant with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley in this new era of your shared ministry?
I do.
It is so. As proxies for the body of the faith,
through the power of our shared sacred responsibility to build the beloved community here on earth,
we welcome Catherine into our shared circle of ministry.
May it be so.
Welcome, Catherine.
Hi folks, I'm the Reverend Lynn Cox, and you can use they, them, or she, her pronouns for me. Reverend Catherine Boyle and I worked together at the UU Church of Silver Spring, Maryland on a ministry of transition, and it's my honor to offer the charge to the minister and the laying on of hands. Reverend Catherine Boyle, my friend, my colleague, my co-conspirator in story and meditation and zaniness, I'm so proud of you that you have reached this milestone that recognizes your ministry. As you pass through this gateway into a future of possibility and mystery, I'm here to talk about the wisdom that you already hold within you, some of which you may need to be reminded of from time to time, as we all do. There is a role model who might help you with those reminders. I am talking about Totoro from the animated film. Totoro, king of the forest, knows about power and wields it responsibly. Totoro receives the respect of adults in the mundane world and fellow beings in the world of imagination, yet is able to offer a ministry of presence and acceptance to children. Like Totoro, you approach the spiritual and emotional lives of children with an open heart, with an understanding their journeys are important and deserving of respect. Totoro travels far and wide for the protection of the most vulnerable. And like Totoro, you have love and respect for children. You are sensitive to the fact that you are bigger than they are. And you know that in making room for their lives and stories, sometimes softness and flexibility are strengths. Totoro and you know that the forest, which some might call community, this ecosystem of history and imagination, this place of risk and shelter, this ancient house of reverence and living circles of renewal, this forest/religious movement is a system that needs nurturing as well as boundaries. It is a place that needs joy. It is a place where dancing can coax acorns to grow into trees, youth to grow into the fullness of their being, and people of all ages to grow into leaders. You know that being a strong leader, a wise listener, a differentiated person, a powerful force for growth is entirely congruent with also being kind, bouncy, funny, and fully present. Some of the things that you and Totoro both know can be hard to remember during the most difficult chapters in this adventure of ministry. Totoro takes naps because being a forest spirit is hard work and we need to rest. Totoro lives in a camphor tree and knows how important it is to return often to a place of healing, a place where one can breathe deeply. Most importantly, Totoro accepts help when it's needed, whether the help is as small as an umbrella or as vast as a cat bus. Totoro's network of friends and colleagues remind us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Catherine, in all of your adventures, remember that flexibility and joy are treasures. Remember that ritual and rest are conducive to growth. And remember that we are here for you. Reach out to your colleagues and loved ones, and the cat bus will be on the way. And this leads me to the laying on of hands, a ritual in which those of us who support Reverend Catherine can show that support and blessing. We are adapting to be both digital and asynchronous, yet I know that love and blessing will come through. So as I call out to groups who are part of Reverend Catherine's life, if you're in that group, you can hold a hand up to the screen, or you can click a reaction emoji or comment in the chat. And even if you don't click anything, if you just send out your love through time and space, I know that Reverend Catherine will receive it. First, Reverend Catherine's family, the people who have known her and loved her and supported her since her call of ministry was barely a flicker, you're invited to lift your hands in blessing. Colleagues, UU ministers, interfaith clergy, administrators, educators, musicians, membership professionals, youth leaders, all who dedicate their lives to faith and service. We are the collegial community to Reverend Catherine. Let's lift our hands in blessing. Folks from congregations that have been part of Reverend Catherine's journey, UU Church of Berkeley, First UU Richmond, UU Church of Silver Spring, you are invited to lift your hands in blessing. Friends, neighbors, supporters, fans, everyone else who's gathered to celebrate this ordination, let's all lift our hands in blessing as we unleash a wave of love and support for Reverend Catherine's ministry. As you lower your hands and relax, I invite you to join me in prayer. Spirit of life and love, known by many names and yet fully known by none, may the love and blessing we offer this day to Reverend Catherine Boyle reverberate in time and space. May this blessing rest in her heart, that she always know that she is surrounded by love. May this support, encouragement, accountability, and acceptance help Reverend Catherine grow in wisdom and faith, and may our communities thrive with her leadership. So be it. Blessed be. Amen.
I've been tasked with a charge to you, the congregation. Now, a lot of an ordination service is about the ordinand, but this part very specifically isn't. This part has nothing to do with her. Instead, it is focused on you, the members of UUCB, the friends of UUCB, and your relationship with your ordained ministers in general, and Catherine in particular. Now, given that UUCB is located in a place with many seminaries, and you've had many intern ministers in the past, you know something of ministerial preparation. It is a long process filled with much reading, many papers, a lot of hours and time and energy, and most of all, a huge infusion of love and compassion. Not only has Kat been through all of this, but you have gotten to see and witness and benefit from the fruits of her journey as she has been serving here at UUCB. This has brought her to this ordination day, a special day in the career of a minister. Now, hers isn't just your average, ordinary ordination day. It is happening during a particular, let's call it, special time for our congregations. A time when we are being faced with a multitude of ever-changing conditions and ever-changing challenges. A year ago, we wouldn't have been able to say that we knew or would even recognize what church looks like today. And I don't think I'm far off to say that we don't know what church will look like a year from now, even 6 months from now. Ministry has also changed dramatically in many ways. And we don't know exactly what ministry is going to look like a year from now, 5 years from now, much less a decade. We are in a time of this amazing and that oft-used word, unprecedented change. But there is some work for us in this. My charge to you, the members and friends and community of UUCB, my charge is twofold. First, continue to accept and care for your ministers. Both challenge us and allow us to lead. Work with us as we all work together to move our faith into the future. And here's my second charge, though, because this time calls for more than just your average charges. Let us together, let us move fully into the present and into the future, whatever that might hold, with boldness, with the willingness to innovate and to take risks. Be ready and willing to let go of just about anything that is the way we've always done it. Be ready to let go. As this year has shown us so dramatically, all of those times are in the past. And it's up to us to figure out how to be and do church in the future in a way that is relevant, meaningful, and welcoming. I don't know what that will look like. I don't think any of us do. But I do know that it's worth making an effort to go to. And that is the journey that we must take together as we go boldly into the future and boldly into the unknown. This is my charge, that we may walk this journey and take this journey in these challenges together.
We close today with words from the late Reverend Yukitaka Yamamoto. The Reverend Yamamoto was the 96th generation of his family to serve as high priest of Tsubaki Grand Shrine, which is in Mie Prefecture, Japan. It is through his legacy of bringing Shinto to the United States, California, and vice versa, Unitarian Universalism to Japan, that our faith's great friendship and history with Tsubaki Grand Shrine continues to this very day. A great friendship that I am honored to be a part of, along now with so many of my fellow reverends. He once wrote, "To be fully alive is to have an aesthetic perception of life, because a major part of the world's goodness lies in its often unspeakable beauty." As we leave this virtual space, may our hearts, our minds, our bodies ever increase the goodness in the world through random acts of unspeakable beauty, acts of love, acts of joy, acts of hope. And may we build the world we dream of. May it be so.